Welcome to My Spoonie Sisters, featuring stories from special guests dedicated to empowering those with chronic illness. Our goal? To connect people and provide the support and tools they need to live a better life. For those with chronic illness, our energy levels just fade faster. We must be more purposeful with the spoons allotted to us. So grab your coffee or tea, sister, and tune in as My Spoonie Sisters share stories of living with chronic illness. Hi, my Spoonie Sisters. I am your host, Gracefully Jen, and as usual, I am so excited to bring you another amazing Spoonie sister. She is an RA advocate. She is an author, a blogger, a vlogger. She's got a YouTube. I mean, this lady is everywhere and she's amazing. So hi and welcome, Effie, or otherwise known as Rising Above RA. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. And do you mind telling listeners a little bit about yourself before we dive in?
Yeah, so I am Effie Koleopoulos. You can find me on Rising Above RA, as Jenny said. And I am an advocate and a writer. So I write about, RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and also I'm working on children's picture books. So some of my stories revolve around characters who have disability or chronic illness, but not all of them. But that is one way I like to raise awareness through the stories that I write, and also anything I do on my YouTube channel, which I haven't really posted lately much on, but it's a fun hobby for me. And blogging, that was sort of like something I started when I was recovering from my knee replacement surgery in 2016. It was more of a passion project than anything, and just to connect with others in the community. So yeah, I mean, writing for me has always been very healing. So that's the way I choose to express myself. And also it helps me with, my emotions, with dealing with RAs. We know there's many of them.
Absolutely. And I think that's a super healthy way of processing and dealing with that. So that's amazing that you're doing that. Can we tell listeners, when were you diagnosed?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at 18 years old, and I started having symptoms when I was about 15. So I didn't really have a proper diagnosis for a few years prior because I was having symptoms, but no one really knew what it was. And at that time, I was in high school. I started having symptoms around sophomore year of high school, and this was back in 2003. So a lot of the things that are known now about juvenile arthritis, especially because I was diagnosed with a subtype called polyarticular juvenile idiopathic arthritis. And it's the type of arthritis that can mimic adult rheumatoid arthritis and be as severe as it. So unfortunately, mine sort of continued into adulthood after I was 18, and it's still occurring now in my mid 30s. But a lot of people who have juvenile arthritis, they tend to outgrow it, sort of, quote unquote, and they can kind of like not have any symptoms in their adulthood. But that wasn't my case. But yeah, so I was diagnosed at 18 at during like pretty much my physical when I was going back to school for my junior year of high school, actually senior year. And then I waited 6 months to get a second opinion at Mayo Clinic. And during this whole time, I wasn't being treated because they suggested I go for a second opinion. However, it was pretty clear cut that I did have juvenile arthritis from the labs and the blood work. But however, back then they were saying that it could be like Lyme disease, which I've been tested for like 5 times, which I do not have. But that's a whole other story with that, because many people can still have that in their bodies and it just disappears. But in any case, that was sort of my ordeal. And in high school, it was a little difficult because I was in pain. I was having immense fatigue and muscle aches, and it was very slowly like progressing though. So the symptoms that I was having in the beginning, you wouldn't really attribute that to an autoimmune disease or arthritis. It was just, like general teenage issues like acne, weight gain, like weight loss, or like just being fatigued. I was waking up at like 6 a.m. I was coming home at like sometimes 7 p.m. So who's to say like I wasn't tired from that, right? So it was just a lot of very vague and subtle things that was happening at the beginning. But then things started happening where my body was just like, okay, sending the alarm, like something is not right. And, as many listeners and too, Jenny, like with arthritis, there's a lot of imbalances in the body to begin with, on all levels. So that's kind of what I was going through at the time, I think, with my body, because there was just so many things that were signaling that. And fast forward, I did find out I had food intolerances and allergies, seasonal allergies, just like different GI stuff going on. So like my body was, I would say, probably dealing with this way before I even started having symptoms. I would say maybe from 5th grade, but again, it was so like subtle, you won't even know. So I think like I read somewhere too that sometimes disease happens like decades before it even begins. And I think that was my case. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how my diagnosis story came to be. And when I went to Mayo Clinic, that sort of was like the last opinion I got in regards to what I had. And then I started treatment, and I started on Enbrel, and then I landed on other medications, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah.
Okay, so I mean, like you said, this started a long time ago for you. How did that affect, your school and your friendships? And I mean, I don't know if you did any sports or anything like that, but how did it affect all of that?
Yeah. So I didn't really know what was going on. So it didn't really affect my friendships that much because, I mean, I just kept going. Like as a teenager, you're just kind of like, I mean, in general, I have a high pain intolerance too. So like I kind of was just like, I don't feel good, but like I'm just gonna keep pushing through. But I think other things were happening in high school too that were sort of impacting my emotional well-being and other sorts of trauma, like being bullied. But then there's other things that are going on in my life too that I think was a big connection to me even developing this in the first place. Yes, I had a genetic factor. I have, one aunt in Europe who has RA, but she was only diagnosed a couple of years ago. My dad had psoriasis, but again, there wasn't really anyone with arthritis in my family. However, there is like a genetic predisposition to it, and I just happened to be the one that got that. But I mean, I think there was other factors environmentally that really did trigger it. Because as many people know, you have predispositions to a lot of diseases and many horrible ones, but you may not even get it. It depends on if the perfect storm exists to make it, ignite. So that was sort of my deal. But yeah, with like school and stuff, like I didn't really have the knowledge of accommodations and, all that stuff until I got to college. So I think if I had been properly diagnosed in high school ahead of time, then I would have had that, IEP and like all those things that they give to kids. But that wasn't my case, because when I did complain to my pediatrician when I was a sophomore, I started noticing like really like strange things in my knuckles on either side. And it was sort of something like I only noticed, like when they say like you lose weight, you only notice it first and then it takes like a few weeks for others. It was sort of that situation with my joints. And so when I pointed out to her, she was like, "Oh no, it doesn't look, abnormal to me." But my knuckles on either side, the first two knuckles on my right and my left hand, seemed a little enlarged. Like it wasn't like what was used to. And so, but to someone else, it didn't look like a problem. However, the following year, that's when I started having inflammation in my wrist, inflammation in those joints that I complained about. So it was really about like the awareness, I think back then too, with like doctors not knowing things. And, I don't like to say unfortunate, but I think it was an unfortunate time that I was diagnosed in, because I don't think those type of things would happen as much now. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think so many families too, if you look at it, how many people out there, we just keep going, kind of like you said, you just kept going. And so your family members are doing this, they blow it off, they don't get seen. And so there's something that they're fighting in their bodies and they don't know. And so then we're predisposed to these things, but we have no idea because they had no idea. And it just keeps going on and the cycle continues.
Yeah, I agree. And also the interesting thing is too, it's like sometimes we put trust in doctors. And I'm not to say that there are bad doctors out there, but some are. And I think just some are ignorant to what this, happens with people's bodies. But with this particular pediatrician, like I known her since I was like a baby, a kid, So like I think when they, my parents obviously heard like her say there's nothing wrong, I think they just trusted her, you know. But then as I started to kind of complain and like, because I mean, what parent really wants to hear that their kid is sick too? I think there's also like that pride and ego thing, or just like not wanting to like accept it either, because it's not something anyone wants. But I think like as I started to complain more, that's when my parents really were like, okay, something's going on, because I'm not really a big like complainer in that sense. Like, and when I was younger, especially, like, and so if I were to complain or cry or do something, whatever, then they knew that it was like pretty bad. So because I was playing sports, I mean, I grew up playing sports, like nothing like an athlete or anything, but I mean, a park district, like volleyball, tennis, softball, stuff like that, like anything that I wouldn't be able to do now, the hard contact sports. I'm sure there's many people out there who do them, but I mean, with my joint damage, I can't. So, I mean, so that's also like if I was hurting or aching, like maybe it was an injury. Like that's what I first thought was happening when my knee swelled, after a camping trip, my sophomore year going into junior year that summer. I thought I just like sprained a ligament or something. I was wearing my sister's knee brace when she had an accident. So it was just so weird. Yeah, it was a really bizarre time.
That is difficult. Okay, so you said that you were on Enbrel for a while. What does your treatment plan look like now?
Yeah, so I'm on Humira and methotrexate. So the combination's working pretty well, but I've had to have, my tweaks of it and stuff because there's been trial and error with that. But I was actually on Humira like 10 years ago, and then I had to stop it because I kind of had a bad reaction. I like broke out in all these rashes, and they found that kind of like it wasn't tied to Humira, but more of like a viral infection that was going on, because I don't know if you know, but juvenile arthritis, it tends to be triggered by a viral infection. And so I have that problem. Like immunologists have seen it and stuff. So it's like my body just doesn't react well to this virus. So, I mean, when I broke out on those rashes, it was just a sign that like the medicine was just bringing my immune system down so much, and whatever was thriving was continuing to do so. So I got off of that. And then I restarted it, and I was kind of hesitant to do so a couple of years ago just because the situation I went through. It was a really bad time with a nasty flare. But, so far so good. I know I'm doing a lot more than I did back then to support my body. But yeah, so I'm on that. And I mean, I've had my fair share of bad experiences, but I don't know if I want to say anything because I don't want to deter people from like taking it. Because I know like that was one reason why I didn't want to take methotrexate at the start, even though it's not like I wasn't treated, but I think for my case, like I was undertreated at one point, but also like not treated promptly enough. And like, I think that's one thing I want people to know is like, if you get a diagnosis and like you get it, and you don't have to be one of those people where you have to wait months and years to get an answer, and you're lucky enough to get an answer, just get on the medicine, and do whatever else you can do functionally alternatively. But I mean, because of my case, I wish I was diagnosed 3 years prior and I didn't have, all those issues, because I think those 3 years and maybe even earlier were causing like damage that's irreversible now. So I think like early detection, early treatment, which is now like a forefront in rheumatology, is like a big thing now. Back then it really wasn't, because they didn't know. So yeah, I mean, I'm on those medicines. It's working well so far, but we'll see, because methotrexate has kind of caused issues for me too. So I'm lowering the dose, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
And I agree with you. I think so many of us are hesitant to share, if we have any bad reactions and stuff like that, because, we don't want to scare people, because evidently, it's important. We need to slow down the progression of the disease. So you need to find a combination that works for you. And it's crucial. And so you want to you want to help people, but you don't want to scare them away as well.
Yeah. And I mean, because you don't know obviously we're not responsible for what triggers people, but you want to be mindful and respectful to people who may not be where you are at in your journey. I've been living with this for like 19 years now. So a lot of things that bothered me back then when I was kind of new to all this doesn't even faze me anymore. Like it's like whatever, but someone else, they may be really deeply affected by it. But, I mean, I made a video on YouTube about my experience with methotrexate, and a lot of people commented on how much like they appreciated that because all you really hear about methotrexate is the negatives, and like that's also something that really scared me back then. But because I was told like in Mayo Clinic when I got a second opinion, it really wasn't like the best experience either. Like the doctor there was just saying things that was like uncalled for, but I mean, then people were like, you're not going to be able to have kids on methotrexate, which is a completely false. So, like just the fear mongering things. And hopefully one day I'll be able to make a video on like kind of the things that you shouldn't like kind of like fall victim to, and then like I'll make that like sort of like, I guess, impact your treatment plan. Right. So we have to be like mindful of that. And yeah, I mean, honestly, methotrexate has been a really big help. Um, though in the big scheme of things, that a couple percentage of things that I've had to deal with it in the hindsight is kind of like nowhere compared to like it being able to like work for me. Like before I even took methotrexate, I wasn't even like able to walk a few steps. Now I'm able to like get up at 7 a.m. I don't have a problem. So I think you have to think of the positives a lot in this journey. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I agree. And, I recently saw my rheumatologist and we were going over how I've been feeling. And honestly, I'm having more inflammation and more pain in my hands and feet again. And what we finally attributed it to was I was off my methotrexate for a while. I was off it, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. And that was long enough for it to have an impact on me. And so together we decided, you know what, this combination seems to be working. And so we're going to keep me on the combination, get back on that methotrexate because it was helping me. And, just because something might help me doesn't mean it's going to help you. And what works for you doesn't mean it's going to help me. So it's, yes, we want to share with people. And yes, we want to encourage and support people, but it's such a fine line.
Yeah, it is. And I felt the same way too when I had knee surgery. I had to get off it for 4 weeks, but then at the 6 week mark, I started feeling it a little bit too. So, I mean, I won't lie though, that the time that I was off it, I was like, oh, I wish I can just stay off it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But, we have to kind of just do what we have to do.
Exactly. And it's worth slowing down the progression of the disease. It's worth
Yes.
helping our bodies be the best that we possibly can. It's absolutely worth it, 100%.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, what would you say are the top, let's go with three. You can name more if you want. The top three things that would be in your Spoonie toolkit.
Yeah. So, I mean, does this include medications or just like self care things?
This can be anything. It could be
Okay.
a thing. It could be a medication. It could be things you do for yourself. It can be anything you want it to be.
Hmm. Um, Yeah, I mean, I would say my pain management stuff. Like, I'm really a fan of green roads. I don't know if you know about it, but I really love that roll on. It just seems to work for me. So, yeah, of course, I use like other things like Voltaren and like other pain management stuff. But I feel like that and like just, my ice packs, my heat packs, like just all my self care stuff. Um, and also, I guess like a good book, a good movie, because I feel like hobbies and stuff is really important. That's what I would put in my toolkit because I think like you have to take your mind off of the constant self care side of things when it comes to like your medications and like things you put in and on your body. So I think like, I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, like the things I like to do, I guess I would put in my kit, whether that's like paint or whatever, just to get my mind off of things. And then I would say the people who support me. I think they're part of my Spoonie toolkit for sure because I think without them I would not fare well.
Okay, definitely. I agree. So now I want to know, what is one of your favorite book recommendations to give people?
Yeah, I don't really have a favorite book, but I like rom-coms and like romantic comedies. I think if anyone's into that, I'm reading right now The Fixer Upper. It's an all right book, but I think if you're into it, those type of books, I would definitely read that right now. That's like a hot pick, supposedly. So, I like those type of books. Yeah, like I like just fun reads. I'm also reading like Greek mythology right now. I'm not, I mean, I'm Greek, but like I know a lot of it, but I like to read about all that stuff too. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to add that to my list because I love a good book. All right. What do you do to stay positive? Is there anything that you find helps with your outlook and just keeping you going from day to day?
Wait, sorry. Ask that question again. You got cut off. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I feel like I asked it a little weird too. So
No,
on the staying
you're
positive,
fine.
on the staying positive aspect, how do you maintain a positive outlook despite the challenges that you face? Calling all Spoonies. As a host of a chronic illness podcast, nothing lights up my day more than hearing from you, our incredible listeners. Whether it's a topic close to your heart that you want us to uncover, or you are keen to show your own journey as a guest on our show, your voice matters. Living with chronic illness can often feel isolating, but through the power of podcasting, we can come together as a community to uplift, educate, and inspire one another. Your stories, insights, and questions drive the conversations we have and the topics we explore. So if there's something on your mind, a story that you are just itching to share, or a guest you'd love to hear from, don't hesitate to reach out. Your voice is not only welcomed here, but celebrated. Let's continue to amplify the voices of those living with chronic illnesses and create a space where everyone feels heard, supported, and empowered. Together, we are stronger.
So I think first and foremost is just having people you can trust to speak to, whether that is like a family member, close friend, or even a therapist. I think like having people who can see your situation from like a bird's eye view and not like kind of like be in your situation can help too. Cause I feel like also it really helps to like talk to other people in your community who are going through it, but you also need people who are not going through it too, who kind of will be there for you, if that makes sense. Because I think sometimes you can get too meshed in like the struggle with others that you kind of can't get pulled out of that, if that makes sense. So you need like two different versions of people, I think, to help you with the positivity aspect. Um, who know you very well, because people online know you well, but they're also not there with you in person. So I think like you need that community online and you need the people in your life, because like those two have really helped me like when I get in negative headspaces, or I have gotten in negative headspaces. And I think like meditation and prayer too really helps me. I know everyone's different, but I think like when I do that every morning, it just grounds me. And affirmations, I think like that helps me stay positive, if that answers your question.
Oh, absolutely. And I think those are all great. And I think, sometimes like what you were talking about, I enjoy having people in my life that are outside of my illness. So
Yeah.
people that I don't even talk about my illness to. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's nice
It does. It does.
just not
Yeah.
live it, just
Mhm.
not talk about it. It's great. Escape it for a day.
Yeah, because you have other interests and you're more than, your illness too. So I think, yeah, it's important just to go have fun with people and just talk about other things in life.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes, when people see us on social media doing the things that like what you and I do, maybe they wonder if that's all we are. And
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, there's so much more to us. And no, that is not what we are. There's so much more. We are many, many things.
Well, I mean, you can say that about anyone. I mean, there's people who are like different, they have different Instagram accounts for different things. You can look at someone who is an artist and they just post art. Is that all who they are? I think like also there's a stigma when people talk about their illness openly, and people automatically say, oh, that's all you talk about. That's all you think about. Well, are you saying that about the painter, the educator, the comedian, the actor? You know what I mean? I mean,
Absolutely.
of course, we all post like different things. Like we don't just post about our illness. Of course, not everything should be about it, but I think like also when it comes to illness, people have that stigma attached to it. They just get uncomfortable, I think, because it makes them think about maybe their morality or like people in their life who may be sick, or like just, people don't really like it as much, because it's not like fun for them. Right.
Exactly.
But I mean, for us, it could be fun, right? We know that we have a lot of fun with our Spoonie sisters,
Absolutely.
brothers. Yeah. But also it's like, cathartic, like you can like heal from it. Like I know when I created my Instagram, I just created it just to connect with people. And it was kind of like my public diary. It kind of still is. So it's not really like anything serious.
Yeah. A funny story is my husband all the time. He's like, which Instagram do I send stuff to? Because I don't know which one is supposed to be you. And I said, well, probably the one with my name on it.
My friend just told me that yesterday because she wanted to send me a meme. She's like, which one should I send it to? Your private one or your rising above? I'm like, either one. I switched through both. Like, yeah, it's just funny. Yeah.
Yeah, he likes to tease me because I hate to admit this, but I have an Instagram just for our cats.
Oh, cute.
I am that weird person. And so yeah, and so he'll be on there and he'll find something and he's like, Jenny, which one do I send it to? I just can't keep track of what you're doing. I don't even
I
know how
love
to
it.
open that one. But okay, so my next question for you is an inspirational thing. Who or what do you find lifts your spirits on a difficult day?
I would say my Spoonie sisters in the arthritis community. I follow a lot of people who just like make fun of being ill, like they use like comedy to cope type of thing. And I love those people who have the energy to post like reels and like every other day or every day, whatever. But yeah, I think those people really uplift me. And also like people who like have sort of walked in my shoes in the way when they've had like surgeries, for instance, or they have like maybe more moderate to severe damage and they're doing things that I eventually want to do, you know? So I think like I really look up and and inspired by those people. I know a lot of people like don't like the word inspiration or inspired, but I think it's not bad. It's like people say disabled is not a bad word. Well, inspiration or telling someone that you inspire them or your inspiration is it's not bad either because the way I see it is like if someone is doing something that you wish you could do or like you don't feel you could do, because you don't believe that you can do. I think it's really important to like surround yourself by that energy and those people who are like kind of overcoming and beating those odds. Of course there are situations where maybe you kind of should veer off from not saying that, but I think you know it's not like a horrible thing.
I agree. And I think, inspiration could be turned around and looked at like encouragement. And at the end of the day, there's so much good that comes out of being encouraged. And every day, if I'm having a rough day, I want to get on and I want to see someone else thriving and doing well or someone having a good time making fun of things. It's encouraging and it's inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, I think, like, people get uncomfortable with that too because, I mean, people have told me, "Oh, you're so strong," or "You're so inspiring," but they don't even live with a chronic illness. So I think, or a disability. I think that's when it kind of gets like the fine line of like offensive for some people. But I don't think those people are coming from a bad place either. I think like if you inspire someone, you inspire someone. If you're inspiring them to make change or like do something better for themselves, then you've made an impact.
Yeah. And, if they're giving us a compliment and saying how strong we are, I mean, yes, that's hard to take because, obviously we have no
Yeah,
other option. We're doing what we have
right,
to do,
right.
but they don't mean bad by it. And so, we just have to roll with the punches and take it as it is.
Yeah.
Do you have any resources that you would recommend to listeners?
Yeah, I would suggest following organizations because that's where you will get like the most like amount of resources possible, especially from like the patient perspectives and like rheumatologists and other medical professionals who work alongside other professionals and even like patient advocates or just people living with arthritis in general and other chronic diseases. So I would say, like the Arthritis Foundation, Creaky Joints, AI Arthritis, um, and just a bunch of other, I think there's other ones too, like versus arthritis, because if you're in the UK you can find them. So I think like really reaching out to those people, they can like sort of steer you to what you're really looking for, because there's so many like things to like, I guess, like resources that someone can tell you, but I think like those are the best like landing spots to just like start at,
I
and then you
definitely
can.
agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. And if you sign up for their lists, oh my gosh, some of the emails that they come up with, it's amazing. And there's one I have saved that I need to go back and reread again because I feel like I didn't I didn't give it my full attention, but
Right.
sign up for those lists. That's important. Go to the websites, go to the Instagrams. And I think you named
Yeah.
one of my favorites. So that's great.
Yeah, because everyone's looking for different things. Like you may want a support group, you may not want a support group, but you want like to attend like a webinar, a class. You just want to connect with other people. Like this is just a good place to start. Yeah,
Definitely.
because not everyone has social media too. That's also a big thing. Because I can say go to Instagram, but I mean maybe people don't want to use Instagram for this. So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So what would be a piece of advice that you would like to not listen? Oh my goodness. What is a piece of advice you would like to give to listeners that are dealing with something similar to your journey?
Yeah, I would say reach out to people in your personal life first. And if you can't do that, then reach out to people online or just do both at the same time. But I think like you really need to find like support in the real world, because like online is one thing, but if you don't have anyone in your corner, like find someone that you can trust to like help you out because there's so many people like out there who may not have like the support financially, emotionally, like whatever there is. I think like it's important to be honest about that, and like see where you can find like a support system and then branch out and also get a support system online too because people who you connect with, whether it be your age, younger, older, it doesn't matter. They will understand you a lot more sometimes than people in your personal life will. But maybe not, maybe people in your personal life will understand. But I think just in general, like find a way to connect with people in whatever way like is beneficial for you. And I think just also be like honest with your provider on how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and don't be afraid to ask questions. And also don't be afraid to like leave a doctor if they're not doing it for you because it's a relationship. But I know that's easier said than done because when it comes to providers, there's so much in the mix, just like with any relationship, right? So I think if you're able to find a new doctor if you need one, you should just do so earlier than sooner the better.
100% agree with you. Okay. So before we end, not that people are going to see what I'm holding up, but you're going to see what I'm holding up. Tell us all about keeping it real with arthritis.
Yay. Well, you're a contributing author,
I
Jenny, right?
am.
So, yeah, you wrote a lovely story. And I truly loved what you wrote. But yeah, so the book is just an anthology of stories of people living with arthritis. There's a few medical providers and parents who wrote stories about their kids' journeys. And, I have one parent who wrote it with her son, actually, but she's in the arthritis supporter section. But it's about like just basically like what people deal with um, when they live with arthritis because it impacts your whole life. So there's different chapters in the book on people's stories on how it maybe impacted them physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, socially. But I think the big thing here is that it's like stories from all over the world, somewhat, but it's all different ages and perspectives, So, I mean, if you're looking for like a well-rounded like perspective of, people's individual experiences, I would definitely check this out. But that's not to say like if someone wrote a story about how it impacted them physically, they're not going to mention anything else. It's so intertwined, but that's what I had the authors do. So, yeah. Just
Yeah.
pick one thing.
Yeah. And it's fun to go in here because you look at some of them and some of them are really long. And then you get
Yeah.
some like mine where mine looks so tiny compared to everybody else. But I was really worried of overwriting. So, but
Yeah.
it's so much fun. I mean, wow, to get on and see all these amazing people in our community. I mean, I'm just flipping through it right now and just all these faces that we're used to seeing. And I love reading about them. Do you?
Yeah. It's a long read. It's a lot. It's also not like a light read either. There's a lot of, heaviness in the book too, because people really did share like the good, the bad, and the ugly in there. And yeah, like you said, it's pretty long. I think like the publisher, I think at one point had to like put everyone's pages a certain way when she was doing the layout. I don't know, but that wasn't something I was doing. But yeah, so I think like it's nice to see all the people that I've connected with personally in the book throughout the years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
I'm
it.
proud of how it turned out and
You
everyone. Yeah.
you plan on doing something like this again?
I don't think so right now. If I do, it would be later on. I don't really know, so right now this is just what it is, but I don't really have any plans for any other ones. But yeah, we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Okay, we're running out of time. I don't want us to
Cool.
get cut off, but I will definitely get all of your links added in here, and you are going to be at the beginning. You're not the first episode, but you're in the very beginning of season 3, and I can't wait for
Awesome.
people to hear all about you and to go follow you if they're not following you. So, yeah, everyone, until next time, don't forget your spoon. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. The information should not be taken as a replacement for medical, clinical, professional advice, diagnoses, or medical intervention. My Spoonie sisters and guests will not be held liable for any of the consequences of such action or inaction. Trigger warning. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics including, but not limited to, suicide, abuse, mental illness, and chronic disease. You are advised to refrain from listening if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. None of the guests or hosts will be responsible for your use of the information contained therein. Life is not merely to be alive, but to be well. Living a life with a chronic illness is best described with one word: unpredictable. Be Well's products are designed to make the unpredictable easier to deal with. Back when I was getting my infusions, I would have loved to have their adult zip hoodie. They even have one in pink. They also have everything from one-day pill holders to urgency buckets. So remember, they want to make your life a little easier. So be sure to check out Be Well.